That's an extra loud Smaulgld. Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Tonight is Thanksgiving Eve. It is Wednesday, 21st of November 2018. And tonight's topic: does the United States have any gold at Fort Knox or any gold at all anywhere? Before we get into that topic, let's just take a quick look at the markets. We're going to spend a bit of time on this concept. Got a lot of charts to show you, and then we'll find out what you think at the end. Let's start with the gold and silver markets and the general markets. So gold managed a decent day today. Went up a little bit, just a little bit. Went up about 0.36%, up about $4 or $5. Currently it's trading, not on the chart, but in the after hours, it's at $12.25 and 30 cents. That's about 30 cents down. Silver, big day for silver today. Outperformed gold. Must mean that silver is set to skyrocket. It's outperforming gold 3-1 today. Let's check it out. Silver price up. Last close at $14.48, and that is where it sits at the moment. Up a stunning 1.29%, up 19%. And there is your silver chart at $14.48, up a staggering 19 cents, up 1.29%. What does that do for your gold-silver ratio? That unsustainable one that should be 16-1 or 9-1 or even 1-1, because silver is rarer than gold. Well, let's see what it does. Look at that. It's dropping fast. It's plummeting. Started the day up around 85.5 and went all the way down to 84.6-1. So silver having a huge day today in comparison to gold. Now, what happened with the equity markets? The Dow Jones was up for a while during the day, but then it fell back and it closed basically unchanged. Dow had been up to about 24,600 and a quarter, and it closed at 24,464. So it dropped 100 or so points. NASDAQ did manage to eke out a near 1% gain, up 63 points to 69.72. S&P 500 also managed to gain about 0.25% to 26.49, or a gain of about 8 points. Now let's get into our topic for the evening, which is, does the United States have any gold at Fort Knox or any gold at all? Uh-oh, we got a moron here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent.
This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
No, I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic.
That's moronic. That's moronic. Well, maybe it is moronic, maybe it isn't, but we're going to find out. What you're looking at right now are the gold reserves by country top 10. And anyone who follows the gold market in any of the gold channels and reads the gold literature will have an opinion that is largely based on being spoon-fed the concept that there is no gold at Fort Knox. That is a very, very commonly held belief. It's one, obviously, that no one can prove or disprove, although it can be proven that there's gold at Fort Knox. But because there has been no audit, that to many people is proof that they say there is no gold at Fort Knox. And many gold pumpers and many gold bugs will tell you, insist to you, that the United States has no gold, it's empty, and that China has so much gold that one day they're going to roll it all out into a stadium and they're going to say to the United States, show us yours, and then it's going to be game over. Why? Because gold is the most important thing in the world. And if you don't have gold, then you don't have power. He who has the gold makes the rules. You hear that all the time. Okay. However, insisting that something doesn't exist because the people that you want to provide you the proof refuse to give it to you doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So, for example, if I told you I had $20 billion, do you think I'd really care about providing my audience with the proof that I had $20 billion? No. Why would I? I have $20 billion and you don't. So there's really no point in me having to prove that. Now, I think that's similar to what's going on with the United States. And I'll explain why. When the United States went off the gold standard, they decided they didn't want to deal with it anymore. They knew where they were going to be drained of their gold. Gold is valuable. There's no point in losing it if you don't have to. And the United States made a calculated gambit that they could just basically say the dollar is the dollar because we say it is. That's fiat. And we're not going to give you the gold for your dollars, central banks, as we are all agreed upon under the Bretton Woods agreements of 1944. So under those agreements, the United States was chosen to be the reserve currency, whereby countries who had accumulated dollars, if they so chose, could bring them back to the United States Treasury, and the U.S. Treasury would hand over the gold. And then in August 15, 1971, Nixon, quote, closed the gold window. The United States was starting to run deficits. We're starting to run trade deficits. And obviously, if there's more dollars abroad and you have smart leaders, there's no reason why you would ever hold a fiat currency over gold over the long term. And de Gaulle realized that in France. Germany realized it. Switzerland realized that. And they basically had a run on the U.S. Treasury. And they were draining the U.S. Treasury of its gold. And so Nixon came out and said, well, from now on, temporarily, we're going to suspend that little feature and we're going to close the gold window. Now, that's the last we've heard of any gold really in the United States. There was no more redemptions made. And let's listen to what Richard Nixon said on that occasion, because it's very important how he's trying to position the dollar without gold.
They thrive on crises. They help. In recent weeks, the speculators have been waging an all-out war on the American dollar. The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
Stop. Now, what Nixon said there was the definition of the dollar, the value of the dollar. Well, I'll play it again.
The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy.
There you go. The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of a nation's economy. He's basically saying no longer is it based on the amount of gold that a country has. And to a certain extent, that's the world in which we live in today. Russia now has, we saw last night, the 5th largest gold hoard in the world, 2,000 tons, and its nation's currency is not very good. It's in constant decline. Kazakhstan, same thing. They've got a lot of gold. Their currency isn't very good. So what they managed to pull off since 1971 is create the impression that the strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of a nation's economy. And I would add a nation's military as well. So what we're looking at right now is the U.S. says they have 8,133.5 tons. No way, they're lying. Now here's the thing with this theory. Not only does the United States not have it, they lost it long ago, or it's been hypothecated or lent out, and they don't want to admit it, because to admit that the United States has no gold would mean the United States dollar would collapse, the world would end, and the United States would be relegated to the dustbin of history because it didn't have any gold. And that would be the idea. Now remember, there are nations out there that don't have any gold. Canada has no gold. Now you may scoff at Canada, but Canada has a AAA credit rating even though it has no gold. And we've noted that Russia has 2,000 plus tons of gold, and it has a very bad currency. That's the world in which we live in today. We don't live in a world in which gold is considered the most important aspect of the financial system. Now, we have seen in recent months some nations repatriating gold, others adding a little gold, but the grand amounts of the gold, the dollar notional values, are very small. Even Russia's 2,000 plus ton, or 2,065.27 tons, as you're looking at on your screen, is worth approximately $83 to $84 billion. Again, we mentioned the other night, when the U.S. did QE, they were doing 200 billion a month. So they could easily subsume 2,000 tons of gold in that. But let's take a look now. Where is all this gold supposedly held? And of course, the theory is it's not held anywhere. There's no gold in Fort Knox. The United States has no gold. Essentially, the United States is bankrupt. Now, the United States may be bankrupt, as you would argue most nations would be bankrupt given their high debt to GDP, high debt to tax receipts, inability to pay off their debt. That's fine, but that doesn't mean that they don't have gold or that they do have gold, or whether that is even important as to whether you can determine a nation's solvency. But let's take a look at where the gold supposedly is and how much of it there is. Well, I did the calculations. There you are, the 8,133.5 tons. This is what the United States they have. About 56% of it is supposedly held in Fort Knox. Now, of course, there hasn't been an audit since 1953. A group of congressmen visited her in 1977, 1978, and then Secretary Treasury Mnuchin went there sometime last year and poked around there with his wife, and there weren't many pictures, but he claims it's all there. But there apparently are 4,582 tons, or 150 million or so ounces. Now, where did all that gold come from? The bulk of that gold came from the Great Gold Confiscation of 1933, Executive Order 6102, by Roosevelt. And that required American citizens to turn over all gold, not just the main thing what they did was they had to turn in their gold coins. So unlike the silver confiscation of 1934, they asked people to turn in their silver jewelry and silver bulk silver so they can make it into coins. The difference with the silver confiscation and the gold confiscation. Right, I think we're back. Sorry about that. That happens all the time. I don't know why that happens. Just thanks for noticing it. I'm looking straight at the thing and I take my eye off of it and it looks like I get cut off. I don't know where we got cut off, but I'll go back to starting with this chart. This chart shows where the gold supposedly is held by the United States at Fort Knox. The first amount there is 147 million. That's about 56% of the overall gold held at the overall gold that the U.S. has. And that's about 4,500 or 4,600 tons. Now, how'd that gold get there? That gold got there as a result of the Great Gold Confiscation of 1933. That's when Franklin Delano Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102, basically requiring Americans to turn in their gold. The main bulk of that gold was the U.S. gold coins, which they stopped minting early the year before, 1932. They minted a couple in 1933. That's why they're rare. But the executive order came out, I think, in April of 1933, and it required people to turn in their gold. So in effect, they took all of the gold coinage out of circulation and they melted it down. And by 1937, they had Fort Knox up and ready in Tennessee, and they put all that gold, they stuffed that in there in addition to some other gold that they managed to acquire during the time period. And then they revalued the price of gold from $20.67, and by an act of Congress, the Gold Act of 1934, they revalued it to $35, where the gold price stayed up until 1971 when Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard. So they managed to keep that gold price steady. People don't realize that a gold standard basically means total manipulation of the gold price. It has to be a steady and constant amount, and at least that type of gold standard. Then there's gold at West Point, 54 million ounces or 1,700 tons. West Point Mint is where they make the American Gold Eagles, the American Silver Eagles since 1986, and obviously they're going to need some gold on hand to make those, but not that much gold, obviously. They haven't used that much gold to make American Gold Eagles, but remember, West Point is a military installation, so it makes sense to store a good amount of the gold there. That's about 21%. Fort Knox is about 56, 57%. And then there's gold at the Denver Mint, 43 million ounces or 1,300. That's about 17%. Then they have working stock of gold. And then some of it's also held at the New York Federal Reserve down in the basement there, about 418 tons. And that gives you your 8133.50. That is your standard number that they say that the United States has. Okay. So if the United States has all this gold, and people say, well, they don't have it because they don't let us see it. And again, that's like telling somebody, look, I got $20 billion, and you say, prove it. I don't have to prove it to you. And why do I have to prove to you that I have $20 billion? If I say I have $20 billion, it's not that important to me to prove to you that I have $20 billion. You could say, well, he's a liar, and then I could just say, well, I have $20 billion and you don't, so I really don't care. And I think that's largely what's going on with the United States. Because if you remember what Nixon said, he said the strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of a nation's economy, not based on how much gold it has. So I think the United States really is not focused on and doesn't want to bother with the audit. And one of the things they said is expensive. Yeah, it's a few, maybe it's tens of millions of dollars to do that audit. But what's the point? What do they prove by doing an audit? Because the United States dollar is not supposed to be based on any amount of gold that it has. And if they don't have the gold, they don't have the gold. But here's where here's where the theory falls apart. Let's say it was important. Totally important for the United States to have gold. If the United States didn't have gold, it would be game over. It would be the worst thing that could ever happen. It would be the biggest game changer on the planet. Gold would skyrocket. The United States would collapse and the world would be over. And because the United States had no gold. Okay, if that really was the case, and it was such a matter of national security, don't you think the United States would have it in its power to somehow acquire more gold? No, because there's no gold to be found. Gold market is tight, and there's no gold out there. It's all paper gold. No. See, this is where people don't put the numbers together. Let's say the United States, for whatever, indulge any conspiracy theory. Let's say Martians came, they broke into Fort Knox, and they flew it all out of there because they wanted to bring it back to Mars. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Let's say there was a big heist. For whatever reason, the gold isn't there. Somebody dropped a nuclear bomb in there by mistake, a neutron bomb, and it's all not valuable anymore because there's radiation on it. But for whatever reason, let's say, and that's happened. Remember, this theory's been out there for decades that there is no gold in Fort Knox. Well, if it was that important, it would be quite possible, very easily, for the United States to acquire more gold. It's not like 8,100 tons of gold is that dramatic of an amount. After all, the chart you're looking at shows that the world produces 3,150 tons a year. Okay, so in 3 years, the world can produce that, less than 3 years, can produce that amount. And you say, well, that's the world and all that's going to China. No, that's not true. A lot of it's going to India. Most of it's going to jewelry. That's what people don't realize. It's not that there's countries that are competing to stack this amount of gold. If you want to get your hands on 1,000 tons of gold a year and you don't have gold mining production, you can do it. Case in point, India does it. Of this 3,550 tons a year, Somehow, a lot of that ends up in India. They don't produce any of it. They say that the Indians, let me show you something here, that the Indian households and temples hold far more gold than the United States supposedly has. Look at that. That's conservative. That's just Indian households holding 18,000 tons of gold. Temples hold another 4,000. And there's the U.S. with its 8,100 tons of gold, and Germany with its 3,180 tons, and Italy with its 2,450. I don't have the numbers on there, but I know them by heart. But the point is that what the United States say they have is not out of the realm that if somehow, through some mishap, they lost it, that they couldn't somehow get it back. Why? Well, we saw 2,000 tons of gold is worth how much? $83 billion. Well, to get 4 times that amount, you need $330 billion. The United States, with all its trillions and trillions of unfunded liabilities, and its trillions and tax receipts, and the ability to print money to do $4.2 trillion worth of QE, the U.S. somehow, if it was so important because it would be game over, couldn't find a way to replenish the gold that it somehow lost. Which, by the way, that's ludicrous to begin with. To think that somehow in the middle of the night, all that gold went out of the Fort Knox. The other one they say is, well, it's still there, but it's got claims on it. Who would want claims on gold in Fort Knox that's never going to leave there? And why would the United States do it? They can just print money and lend money out. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. But again, indulge the stupidity that somehow the gold is either fully got all kinds of claims on it, 1,000 claims on it, or it's been stolen in the middle of the night, or it's on you, whatever it is. It can easily be replaced. Why? Well, a lot of the same people who talk about the United States as being debt-ridden and bankrupt and doesn't have any gold also say that the United States goes around the world beating up everybody that it feels like beating up and steals their gold. Well, it sounds to me like the United States in a very powerful position that the easiest thing for it to do would be to acquire some gold. You say, well, the world is against the United States and they want to crush the dollar, so they're not going to sell them any. Well, first of all, even if that's true, the United States still could use its military power to go get gold if it had to. But let's remember something else. The United States has a very significant gold mining production itself. Let's take a look here. Since 2000, the United States has mined 4,500 tons of gold. That's a lot of gold. Now, if it was so important, they could add more if they wanted to. I don't believe that the gold is not there, it's hypothecated. But it wouldn't take much of an effort. Let's say they woke up to this concept today. Someone tapped Donald Trump on the shoulder and said, you know, the gold has been gone for 30 years. And all these other presidents didn't care. No one cared about it. It's gone. In 3 years, 2 years, the United States can easily build it back up. Not just through its own domestic mining production. They can buy gold from other countries out of that 3,200 tons. But again, there's no reason to believe it's not there, or that the United States would make deals for their gold. It makes no sense other than you want to believe it, and you cling to the fact that because they haven't audited it, that means it's not there. I'm not quite sure how that all follows. But the other thing you have to remember is there are people who say they've been there, they've seen it, but I'll give you a very, very credible person, not Munchkin, but a gentleman named Ed Moy. Now, Ed Moy was the head of the United States Mint. Oh, I think he finished up there just a couple of years ago. He's not there now. But he claims that he was there when he was the director of the U.S. Mint, and he has seen the gold. And there's no question about now. Did he go through every bar and assay them? No. But the idea that somehow the United States would spend a lot of effort playing smoke and mirrors, I don't think that's what's going on at Fort Knox. I think it's because it's security. Because according to the way this thing is guarded, it's guarded by the U.S. Mint Police. It's got blast-proof 22-ton doors, 16,000 cubic feet of granite, 4,200 cubic yards of concrete, 750 tons of reinforcing steel, 670 tons of structural steel, just so they can pull off a farce that they're guarding nothing. Why would you want to? The only reason you'd want to believe that is it's the game over story. That somehow it's important for the United States to have gold, but if they didn't have it, which we want to believe they don't have it, then it would be game over for the dollar. The dollar would collapse and your gold would go skyrocketing and you'd be rich. That's why you want to believe that. But if it was that simple, that if the United States not having 8,100 tons of gold, if it was so important that it would be game over if they didn't have it, it's impossible for them to regain 8,100 tons of gold for a mere 343 billion. Well, you say, well, no, but then the price would rise because everyone would know they were buying. Well, everyone knows India's buying. India buys 1,000 tons a year. It's not a big deal. The price doesn't go up. In fact, it's gone down the last 3 years that they've bought about 1,000 tons a year. China imports 400 some odd tons a year through Hong Kong, 500 tons. Doesn't make the price of gold go any higher. So the United States jumps into the fray. Russia has added 2,000 tons in the last 10 years. So what? So the idea that somehow the United States doesn't have the gold, and that if they really didn't, that they couldn't replace it, really doesn't make a stitch of sense. Now, the other thing you have to remember is, well, what about the big bad United States? Not only do they go into other countries, according to the same people who believe in this, the United States says there's no gold at Fort Knox, they go into every country and they steal the gold. Well, that should kind of tell you they have the power to get gold if they want it, if you believe that. But also, the United States has under its control, about 5,500 tons of other people's gold still that hasn't yet been repatriated. So, if the United States doesn't have the 8,100 tons, and you believe that they are the evilest empire on the planet, well, chalk that 5,500 tons into the column of the United States. Because if they need it, and it's so important to have it, well, then that's theirs. Good luck any country trying to come and get it if they don't want to give it to them. Look, England told Venezuela to go pound sand for their gold. See, this idea that the United States is this most powerful bully on the planet, but somehow is impotent when it comes to the ability to acquire gold, makes not a stitch of sense. And that the United States would go to great lengths to lie about their weakness in their gold position. They're just guarding a bunch of air, or they're guarding gold that they've lent out and they somehow can't replace. Look at those numbers again. 3,200 tons of gold are mined every year. You're only talking about 8,133 tons that the United States is supposed to have, and a lot of people insist they don't have. Look how much goes to jewelry. We talked about this. The bulk of gold doesn't go to the banks and the country's central banks holding. It goes to jewelry. It's just mind-boggling that people want to believe that the United States doesn't have it. Even if you get past the fact that you come up with the theory that why it's not there. Well, if it's not there, why can't it be replaced? And I think we've seen a lot of examples how easily it would be to replace that. Not in one day, not in a month or a week. But clearly, if this is a problem that people on YouTube can think exists, you don't think the United States can figure out that they don't have gold and it's so important that they couldn't replace it? It's mind-boggling that actually people believe that, and they want to believe that this is a real thing. Now, I was going to do India, but I don't think I need to. I think I'd like to focus now on what you guys think about this no gold at Fort Knox. I saw it on YouTube, or I read it in someone's blog, and when they find this out, it's going to be game over because the United States has no gold. All right, let's see. All right, here we are, tossing Molotovs. Buy Bitcoin next year, not now. All right. Maybe you want to tell us why. Roger Henley, I think there's more hidden gold at Smaulgld headquarters at Fort Knox. Yes, I'm a shill for the government, a disinformation agent. Under my house, I've got 4,000 tons of gold. People believe anything. Not me. You should see what the mailman brought. A super classic mug to fill with turkey gravy tomorrow. Yum, says not me. Well, that's great. Gen C, that's a great question. Why is the dollar not backed by gold anymore anyways? I think we answered that. I think what was going to happen was the United States was going to run out of gold. The foreign signatories, the central banks that were entitled to redeem their gold, their dollars for gold, were told they weren't allowed to anymore. Remember, during the gold standard period, it really wasn't a gold standard. The dollar wasn't really backed by gold because you and I and people couldn't go into a bank and just ask for gold. It was only the central banks of other countries that could ask for gold. Max Strong is here. Greetings all. Joel Thornton, if you buy metals through your own affiliate link, does that effectively give you a discount? Yeah, if you could do it, but you're not allowed to do that. Max Strong, because the dollar is backed by... But you can do that, Joel. You can buy as much gold or silver through the Smaulgld affiliate links as you wish, and I will get a small commission. It's not an investment advice to buy gold or silver, but if you do, that is one way of helping out the site. Max Strong, because the dollar is backed by pre-1982 copper pennies. Gold is the barbarous relic of the past. Copper bullet, copper shield, right, Max? Copper is so useful. We could not live our lives without copper. Copper is money for 5,000 years. Copper is money, period. Actually, copper is money. Probably just as long as silver or gold. You just don't see channels devoted to worshiping copper. Mint Mark. So now that Canada has no more gold, is it game over for them? Yeah, they sold off their last gold about 3 years ago. It's game over for Canada. Canada has gone down the tubes ever since they gave up their gold. Pablo Pina. Canada will soon have to get the shovel and start digging for gold unless Canada's gold is held in Great Britain. Nope, they don't have any gold. They do have resources. I think the United States has it mines more gold right now than Canada does. And you don't want to get that same treatment as Venezuela. Pablo Pina. Mugs are the most important aspect of the financial system. That is true. Trust the mug. Smaulgld mugs, stackable. They're mugs are universally recognized. They go back to antiquity. You could see pictures of the Greeks with mugs. Every culture has created mugs, but only Smaulgld has elevated them to a classic monetary form. William Burkhardt, just so you know, Mr. Birkenroad, Google decided that this was something that I should not show. Your comment. I don't know if I should show it. I don't think it's that bad, but I'm going to not show it. But you can understand, Mr. Birkenroad, why your comment wasn't shown. I don't think it's that bad, but they're very strict here. Max Strong, I'm researching crypto, and by February, so I'll make some purchases. Okay. Roger Henley had a point there, but he took it away. Max Strong, Smaulgld mugs are the apex predator of the financial industry, to be honest. Roger Henley says you're not trusting the plan. Yes, we all must trust what we hear on YouTube and believe everything. Whether it's JP Morgan has 6 trillion ounces of gold, whatever the number is, you have to believe it. You can't prove it's not true. No, I can't. But you can't prove that it is true. But again, it comes down to you believe what you want to believe. If you want to believe there's 2 things about there is no gold at Fort Knox. One, you have to want to believe that. And 2, you have to want to believe it for a reason. The reason you want to believe that is not because the evidence is so compelling, just because there's no audit. It's because, well, if they don't have gold, then it's game over. Dollar collapse. China to crush the dollar. It all kicks in. All of the things kick in. Then the COMEX defaults and China stands for delivery. And then it's just chaos and it's a Mad Max world. But you've got your gold and you're going to be the big swinging whatever in the next paradigm, and you're going to be rich because you listen to these YouTube channels and you heard it all, and you knew there was no gold there. And not only did you know there was no gold at Fort Knox, you knew why it mattered, because he who has the gold rules. All right, let's see. Now a lot of the gold people and the silver people in the different pumping communities, they don't even, it's strange. Some of the silver people, they reject gold, and some of the gold people reject silver. But they believe their own. All right. Z David, question. Sell off my mutual fund, get hit on taxes, and buy metals. This isn't an investment advice channel. I don't know what you're doing, Z David. David, the only thing I can advise you on is when and how many mugs to buy. And the answer to that is always now. and as many as you can afford. That's the only advice I give is about mugs. Munchkin said it's there, and that's his word, says Pablo Pina. Yeah, but the thing is, what difference does it make? Seriously. He says it's there. First of all, why would you believe it's not there? Because they don't bother going in there. I mean, remember what's his name was saying? Ed Moy, the director of the Mint. Oh, I didn't tell you this part. Each of the vaults is sealed with a special tape that's designed to show forced entry, and then they have all these things set up to make sure the seals haven't been broken or tampered with. And then they do an inspection all the time to make sure that no gold leaves there. But that's not the same as an audit. But if you think about it, if you audit the gold when it goes in, you don't need to audit it again. You just need to make sure it hasn't left. And if you can check all the points to make sure it hasn't left, it's not as good as an audit, but you can be comfortable that it is it's there. Now, he said he visited Fort Knox at least once a year, and he was given a full tour, and he did visual inspections with his team. And he said during the time that he was there, the 5 years, he saw that the gold remained undisturbed. All right. But just because there's no audit doesn't mean it's not there. Again, it's like, I don't have $20 billion, but if I told you I had $20 billion, I actually did have $20 billion, I wouldn't have to prove it to you. And the thing is, remember with the U.S., they don't want the gold to have anything to do with the value of the currency. They want the value of the currency to be based on the strength of the economy and the strength of the military, and it's really none of anyone's business. Who do they have to prove to that they own the gold? The average American person could care less about this. You know that. It's just the same thing like the average Indian or Chinese person buying gold or silver. They're not looking at the gold-silver ratio and saying it's unsustainable. They're not worried about the collapse. Just as the average American could care less whether there's 8,100 tons of gold in Fort Knox. They don't even care. There's no reason for them to waste their time doing an audit other than to please the people that run these theories on the internet and on their blogs. All right, let's see. What else do we got here? You can't prove it. What else? We got more comments. All right. Did we look? Okay, yes, this is when I lost the connection. All right, I'm back up. Yes, the Russians took me down. All right, Roger Henley. All of Fort Knox gold has been buried in the Grand Canyon, just as bequeathed in his comic books. I don't think he says that, though. His theory is that I think they discovered a lot of gold in the Grand Canyon, and they just refused to mine it because they were worried. Now, there is validity to the theory that when there are new finds, it does detract from the price of gold. So, for example, I'm not saying that there's gold at the bottom of Grand Canyon. Here's some article that shows that. But when they had found gold in San Francisco, that drove a lot of gold came back east. And actually, for a short period of time, it made silver more valuable because the gold was plentiful. I also found out recently that about 90% of the world's gold has been mined since the gold rush of 1849. So the idea that there's not a lot of gold around is nonsense. They say there's 190,000 tons around. For the United States to have 8,100 tons, it's not that big of a deal. Again, 1 month of QE, $200 billion. That's all the gold in Fort Knox for sure. All right. Z. David, trusting to decide if I should sell off my mutual fund and buy or just use liquid cash. I thought you were going to say is whether you should sell off your mutual fund and buy mugs. That's the only thing I could advise. I don't give investment advice. That's not what this channel is about. No tax advice, no predictions, just general trends and so on. Turbo Rewind says, I've saved up 20 American Gold Eagles. Wow, 20 Buffaloes over the years. More, he says. Well, that's 40 ounces of gold. What does that come out to? I've never seen that much gold. Let's say 40 times 100 plus a premium. That's like 50 large. Wow. How about the movie Goldfinger where the villains radioacted the gold, says Pablo Pina? That's what I was throwing out there. Let's say that happened. Well, the United States clearly could find more gold, even if all that gold was lost, and then find a place to store it. I don't know why that sounds out of the realm of possibility, other than you want to believe that there's no gold there and somehow you're going to be rich when everyone finds this out, and you'll be so grateful that you heard it on the internet and you were so happy that you acted now before it happened. Hope mine isn't radioactive. I have a stock cat where they mine cobalt, says Pablo Pena. Mint Mark SI, they won't confiscate gold again. No, probably not. Pablo Pena, thanks for the spoiler. LOL, says Max Strong. Thanks, Max. I got some Kugs also. I think you mean Krugs. Mint Mark SI, what will they confiscate when the excrement hits the fan? Well, you know, there was an executive. I couldn't find it. I don't know if there actually is one, or maybe someone just made it up. But I think there is an executive order where the president has the right to commandeer a certain natural resources for national security, basically to redistribute. I know they can do that with water. They can come to people's houses, and you know, I don't know what they would confiscate. As we saw with gold and silver, the easiest way to confiscate large amounts if you need it, and we did this the other night, we went through the silver stockpiles, the gold stockpiles, that would be all you need to have, really. I mean, if you take the domestic silver mining supply, 32 million ounces, you just commandeer the silver mines within the United States, and then you mine even more than you currently mine at a loss. That should be enough. If you needed more, you can raid the COMEX vaults. I mean, you can raid the mint. There's a lot of silver in the United States. You can definitely get the silver, so I don't think they'd want to confiscate your stack. Where's Barry? Wasn't here for the show. I think he can answer the title's question. Yes, no, maybe, who cares? We don't use gold as money, so who cares? That's kind of it. I mean, the idea that A, it's not there, and B, that if it wasn't there, it mattered, and then C, if that's the case, that the United States would do nothing about it. They just sit around and say, yep, we're out of gold and we're hosed when people find out. Think how stupid that sounds. That the United States has a known vulnerability, that it's going to be game over and game changer when the world finds out that they are guarding either apothecated or vault with no gold in it. If that really mattered and somehow they didn't have the gold, they would have filled it up again. Makes no sense. All right. Turbo, when I started out with Kugs at First Form eBay because they were cheaper. Ugh, it says 30 seconds till the show, says Crypto Shrugged. Author, I click and it's live. YouTube can suck. Yeah, I got cut off tonight again. In mid-sentence, making a point, waving and gesticulating, and next thing you know, I'm talking to a dead microphone. All right. Turbo Win says he got 76 ounces altogether. Hold on. Do a quick calculation of that. Let's see. If you got 76 ounces, 12, 25. He's got almost 100 large in gold. That's nice. Very nice indeed, says Salivate Metal. All right. Let's see. 100%. The earth is flat, folks. The dollar is going to collapse. That's right, John. And you better get your hands on the shiny before it all comes down and the world finds out there's no gold at Fort Knox. And then the gold is going to go no bid and no offer, and there'll be no gold trading at all, which would make it worthless because, okay. My goal is to be in the 100-ounce club, says Turbo Wind. That would get you 122 large. I got 20, what is it, show and tell here? Max Strong. I got 20 1-gram pandas, but I'm trying to purchase a Gold Eagle every month. Well, that's good. That's like $20 a month. That's a good savings plan if you can save $20 a month after you pay off your debts. I love pandas. I don't have one. You know what I found out about the pandas, which is really cool? The silver pandas and the gold too, I think. They change the picture of that little animal on them every year. Except one year, it's a trivia question. They made two successive years the same panda design. U.S. has no problem holding silver and plenty of it, says Pablo Pena. Turbo Wind. I want to collect as many kinds. ASCs and buffs are boring now. Okay. Silver stock's up nicely today. I didn't check. Were they up? Well, silver was up nicely too. It was a very big day. La Plata Peak. I drink a mug of turkey gravy. All right. The pandas are so cute. I have to have them, says Max. La Plata Peak, 22 ounces even. So you must have received your mug too. Didn't you? Did you think like I did? When mine came in the mail, I looked at it and I said, oh no, this is a toy. I'm going to get like sued. People are going to say, why are you misrepresenting this mug? I thought there's no way you can fit 22 ounces of anything in this thing. And I poured just about two 11.2 ounce Pilsner Urquell beers in there, and they fit. I'm shocked. It's a very attractive mug. It looks like a toy, but it's much bigger. It looks big in the picture, and it looks small in real life, but it actually carries 22 ounces. Turkey gravy. Yeah, I guess if you put 22 ounces of gravy, I can hold it, you pour it onto your turkey. Very nice. Very nice. All right. Copper is the real game changer. I want a Freedom Girl next, I think. What are those? The Silver Shield and Silver whatever. Silver Bullet. Canada has no silver either, says La Plata Peak. At least the only silver that counts in Canada, that would be one Lord Stanley's mug. Okay, see what I did there? 1993. Philip Quinn says, go long on mugs. No one has bought the Smaulgld frosted mug, which is perhaps the most beautiful mug, but it is the most expensive mug. It already looks like you've put it in the freezer. But imagine putting that in the freezer, and then it comes out and it's frosted and cold. And then you pour your crisp one in there. Beef bouillon cubes instead of coffee is good too. No one's bought the coffee yet either. That's the Kona coffee on the website, and also the on Smaulgld.com, and the Blackout coffee. Very good products as well. Angling for commissions here for those. All right. Drunk Octopus. Is it true that all fiat currencies of all time have collapsed? Yes, it is. Tell us your thoughts. Now, the reason that fiat currencies collapse is people die. Nations die. When you say this is worth something, okay, you have to have the ability to enforce it. So the first paper currencies came from China, and by penalty of death, you had to use them. That was real fiat. They were an innovation. Then you had gold certificates later on in Europe. A fiat currency cannot continue to live because it has no intrinsic value. It has to be backed by law. Even if a law exists, the law has to be enforced. So it's the same with the fiat currency. And if the society breaks down, just best example is one that people would forget, Venezuela and Hungary and all these third world nations. But the United States, look what happened during the United States with the Confederate dollar. Something people can relate to is there were Confederate States and there were the United States. And the Confederate States had a mint. They took over the New Orleans mint from the U.S. And they had a mint, I think, in Alabama as well. But they, for the most part, they did not mint coins. They issued currency because they were in tough shape there. The bulk of, they didn't have industry, and they had the ports blockaded, so they weren't making much money. And the money they were making, they were sending to munitions. But they were able to keep the economy going, even with inflation, with the Confederate dollar. But when the South lost the war between the states, they were done. And therefore, their money was done. Now, their money was no better looking or no worse looking than the U.S. dollar. It's just that the winner was able to say, this is the money and this isn't. Yes, so fiat currencies, that's another selling point of gold and silver, but I think it's oversold the way they sell it to you, is they make it sound like it's going to happen tomorrow to your dollars. Again, it's a good hedge. You never know what's going to happen. One thing you do know is that gold and silver are a relatively immutable. Gold for sure is. The silver tarnishes a bit. They're not going anywhere. And they don't rely on the government to say they're worth this much. They can try to say they're not worth anything, but it doesn't change the fact that an ounce is an ounce. A ton is a ton, and so on. La Plata Peak. If I drink beef or chicken bouillon with oyster crackers or saltines. Thanksgiving might start on a Wednesday this year. All right. Max Strong says, mugs, copper, silver, gold, and crypto is my motto. Okay. In that order, right? Mugs, copper. Yep. Those are the two most important. Pablo Pena, 1,000 years into the future, they will find my Smaulgld mug and it'll be in a museum and displayed. But you haven't gotten yours yet. I shipped yours out today. So yours shall be arriving. Roger Henley, George Clooney stole the Fort Knox gold in Ocean's 11. That's where it is. That's where it is. Forgot. Turbo Wind, what happened to my comment? I don't know. I haven't deleted anything. The only comments that get withheld if you use words that they don't like DICK I saw, Or you put links. They don't like links. I think I can put links in, but you can't. I don't know how that works. All right, what else do we got here? Lots of comments tonight. That was Jeremy Irons and Die Hard with a vintage. Fort Knox is for tourists, very true. RWS Graha, long on mugs. Oh, invest in a mug ETF. As long as it's backed 1-to-1, that's a good idea. I haven't looked into mug ETFs yet. La Plata Peak. Montana and California's borders are dictated by where gold was located. Nevada's supposed to have the east side of the Sierra Nevadas, and the Idaho-Montana border is supposed to be the Continental Divide. Well, Nevada was a silver state. Nevada had a Senator Pittman. He was a real character. He was always trying to come up with acts that made Nevada have to mine more silver and to get an above-market price for it. I've done some videos on that one. He was the Harry Reid of his day. Pittman. Seriously, hope you stackers have a nice Black Friday. I hope so. Yes, and by the way, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. It is indeed Thanksgiving Eve. Buy mugged back crypto. Mug coin, right? Mug coin. Charles Bruce had a comment. He took it away. He's probably complaining that I wasn't subscribing to the theory that there's no gold at Fort Knox. Everyone knows that. You're ignorant. You don't know anything about gold. Everyone knows. I saw it on YouTube. There's no gold at Fort Knox. Ha! It's all tungsten filled. Invest in major mug mining companies. Yes, sirree. I love pandas. They look delicious. Turbo One. I'm 59 years old. Your mug looks better than mine. Mugs backed by coffee with a Bailey's added. Well, that's a nice thing. See, the reason I like the classic and super classic mugs, if you're listening to Smaulgld in the morning, you can have your coffee. But in the evening, if you get yourself this 22-ounce beer stein or the frosted mug, then you can have your adult beverage in the evening. Convince Lewis to have 1 ounce silver ounce made. I would buy a few. Well, not me. I would definitely want to have those made, the Smaulgld, and I need some device to get some input on what you'd like as a design. But Game Changer would be on the back. The problem with the rounds though is you still have to pay a pretty hefty premium, because unless I was able to sell thousands of them, the mint is going to charge me whatever they're going to charge me. I haven't looked into it. I've asked Salivate Metal for some advice. He had made some rounds a while back. What I don't want to do is buy like a lot of them and have them here and then have to ship them out and then get stuck with them, because I mean, I am Smaulgld. I don't need to look at a coin Smaulgld on it at a price. But I think the great collectors, everyone should have one, but I don't want to have like 50 or 100 of them. I have to buy them all in advance, and I don't want to do that. But I would like to have one, and I think a lot of people would like to have one. Like, a lot of people like to walk around with one. It's a good conversation piece. So if I can figure out a way to get them made, even if we only sell 50 or 100, that would be great. But I'm not going to go out and try to buy 50 or 100. Oh, yeah, MK Bars, La Plata Peak. Why aren't you in MK Bars International Silver Syndicate? He wrote to me, I wrote to him, and I stopped. I was going to ask him if maybe he could make poured silver Smaulgld ingots or something. I don't know. Maybe you might be interested in that, and he might be able to do that. Yeah, I've been La Plata Peak. I have the others. I have SD Bullion, Money Metals Exchange, and Golden Eagle Coin. I guess I could add that if you would buy from that link, but after a while, if you get too many bullion dealers on your site, it looks a little messy. All right, Turbo Win. My goal is insurance in case I have to start over for some unknown reason. Well, that makes sense. I mean, if you think you're going to buy gold and you're going to get rich because the Fort Knox doesn't have any gold, good luck with that. Harry Reid is insufferable. Yes, well, he's gone. All right. Well, everyone, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Leave your comments. Also, go over to smaulgld.com. You could subscribe there. Even better yet, go over to the Smaulgld Patron and hook me up with a patronage. I have 19 patrons. I'm very pleased with that, and we do correspond. Yeah, so thank you very much, and happy Thanksgiving. Oh, if I get 20 emails, I wasn't planning on doing a show tonight, but if there are people, it's going to be tough. There's only 37 watching, but if I get 20 emails saying that you would want a show tomorrow night, Then when I finish Thanksgiving, I will put something together for about India or something that we can discuss. So if you're interested in a show tomorrow night, email me at smaulgld@gmail.com. If I get 20 emails saying yes, I'll be available, I'd like to show, then I'll do it. If I get 2 or 3, then I'll assume that you guys are also busy, and we'll pick it up again on Friday. So smaulgld@gmail.com. Thank you very much.